Today I'm going to share with you 5 things that all new real estate investors should know. When I started investing in real estate almost 20 years ago, I didn't have a mentor or anyone guiding me through the minefield that is real estate investing. And here is 5 things I wish I knew when I started out. I have one little bitty favor to ask of you. Hit that like button, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell for notifications. Now let's get started. So number 1 is start out small. Now my first property was a duplex. Now while that isn't a huge property by any means, it still is a multifamily and not a single family. And so that's a totally different animal, and I didn't realize that at the time. I thought owning a single family and a multifamily were going to be really similar, especially with a duplex, and that it would be just as easy to manage 2 tenants under one roof as it would be 1 tenant. And I was really wrong on that. And there was several other things that I didn't know that popped up later that could have been a disaster. Luckily they weren't too bad, but let me give you an example. After I purchased the property, I found out in the state of Tennessee, if you have a rental property with 2 or more units rented, it becomes commercial property for the purposes of property taxes. Now, that means that the tax rate is 15% higher than the residential rate, which is a big difference, and that skewed all my numbers because when I did my research for this property, all the taxes were calculated at the residential rate, and now everything's going to be taxed at the higher rate. And this one had apparently been rented on one side and had an owner that lived in the other side before I bought it at some point in the past. So it qualified for residential rate because it only had 1 unit being rented. And this was triggered by the sale being recorded at the state level. They saw that the tax bill was no longer going to the actual duplex, it was going to another address, and they realized that it was both units were being rented. In fact, they actually contacted me and asked me if I was renting both units, and I said yes, and they explained to me that I would be responsible for the commercial tax rate, which is 15% higher now. So that I did not expect. I did believe that, it was going to be a little bit higher. My tax appraisal was probably going to go up because I paid more for the property than the previous owner had paid, and that was going to make the valuations go up a little bit. But I didn't expect that 15% increase because it's now commercial. So that's something that that I didn't learn until after I bought the property. So let me tell you what happened next. While I only had 2 tenants to manage, both of them being inherited from the purchase of the property, it became obvious that one of them was not a keeper. The second month I owned the property, I had to evict that tenant for non-payment of rent. They had went 2 months without paying me, and I had to sit down with them and tell them that they had to pay me or they had to leave. And luckily they left without a big fuss. They did leave me a mess, and I did have to clean and repaint and advertise and list the apartment for rent. And so I lost all those days of rental and 2 months worth of rent, which definitely hurt my cash flow starting out. So here's another thing that happened. After I evicted the tenants that weren't paying, I ran an ad for $350 a month to re-rent the property. And new people moved in and they became friends with the other side. Well, the previous landlord had made an agreement with the other tenant that he would give him a $25 a month credit on the rent if he would mow the yard. Well, what he really did was he raised his rent to $375 a month and then gave him a $25 credit, so he's renting this side for $350 and he was renting the other side for $350. Well, I didn't raise the rent on this side, I just rented it for $350 so I could get it rented again and get some cash flow coming in, and I didn't think anything about them going and telling the other side that they're paying $350, and that's what happened. They became friends and they talked to each other and they told the other side that they're paying $350. So this guy comes to me and he says, well, I'm paying $350 and this guy's paying $350, but I'm mowing the yard and this guy's not doing anything. So So I ended up with an issue over mowing the yard. So those are the kind of things that can happen. I mean, you're going to have tenants that talk to each other, and if you raise the rent on one side or the other, they're going to know about it. And if they're the same size apartments, then you're going to have that issue. I got a crash course in rental property management in the first 2 months of ownership. While buying a duplex seemed like a smart idea at the time, and it did turn out to be a pretty good investment for me, it was riskier than it had to be. It's those little things that you don't know that can come back to bite you. In this scenario, it was the property tax. But there was other things that I didn't know as well. Multifamily properties have negative aspects to them that you don't really think about. You know, other than the lawn care, there's also parking issues. If you don't have enough parking or somebody blocks somebody in, you've also got noise complaints from one side disturbing the other side. Also, there's pest control issues. If one side brings in something like roaches, they can spread from one side to the other side very easily. There's all kinds of things that can come up with multifamily that you don't really deal with so much in a single family unit. I found that people who rent in a multifamily type environment, whether it be an apartment, duplex, whatever, they tend to have a different mindset, and they tend to be a little more transient in nature. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just that they're looking for a place to stay for a while, and they're not looking to settle down with a home. And that's the kind of the difference between a single family and a multifamily tenant. And for all these reasons, I think it helps to have a little bit of property management experience before you venture into multifamily property investing. Number 2, screen all your tenants. Early on, I got burned by a tenant. He tore up my place, and I ended up having to do a court-ordered eviction on him. And I learned really quickly that I needed to start screening my tenants. So I figured out I needed to know their credit history, their rental history, their criminal history, and I needed to verify income and employment. I knew if I knew those 4 things, I could make better decisions and choose better tenants. Back then, credit screenings were not as common or as easy to do as they are today. Back then, I had to use a paper application, fill it out, fax it to the credit screening company, and wait about 24 hours to get a credit report back. So it was time consuming, they were expensive. Credit screening companies did give me a credit report, but they did not give me criminal history, rental history, or verify employment. So those things, I had to find another way to get that information. I did try some independent companies that would do criminal history, rental history, and verify employment. But what I found is when it came to the rental history and verifying employment, they didn't do a very good job. They would put on the report a lot of times that they couldn't contact previous landlord or were unable to verify employment, and I still had to pay for the full report. And basically they did it kind of a very limited criminal check, so it wasn't a really good value, I didn't think. So I quit doing those. I thought they were kind of a waste of money, and I started doing my own. So for criminal history, in Tennessee, we have a database called the FOIL database. It stands for Felony Offender Information Lookup. And so what that allows you to do is you can go on a state website and you can search for people, and if they have a felony conviction, their name will be in the system, and it'll tell whether they've served their time or whether they're on probation or parole. It also will tell you if they are incarcerated, you know, that they are incarcerated and what the term of their sentence was and things like that. There's also things like sex offender list. There's also a meth offender list here in Tennessee. So you can look up those type of things on your own for free. Now, when it comes to rental history, I basically try to contact the last 2 landlords. And the reason why I'd say the last 2 landlords is because if you just contact the current landlord or where they're coming from, you may find that if they're not paying the bill or they're not doing what they're supposed to do, that landlord might want rid of that tenant. And he may not be as forthcoming telling you about their problems or what's going on. So he may give them a better review than deserved so that he can move his problem onto you. So you want to be a little bit mindful of that. I actually prefer to speak to a previous or past landlord because they have no ulterior motives. They don't have any reason to lie to you. They are done with the tenant most likely, and they are more likely to tell you the truth and give you the real story about that particular prospective tenant. To verify an employment and income, I usually ask for the last 60 days of pay stubs. And so I'm really just concerned with the fact that I want to know that they have a job, and I also want to confirm that the amounts they gave on their application and verify those amounts are accurate. And you can do that with the pay stubs, and you can look at the year-to-dates and look at how much they're making and figure out if it matches up with what they've told you. And you also know that they've had a job for 60 days, which is a good thing. Hopefully they've had it for longer than that, but that is at least the minimum. And so that's how you can do that. You can call employers on the phone and verify. I find that a lot of them won't do that nowadays because of privacy laws, and they're very reluctant to do that. In fact, a lot of them, like Walmart and some of the bigger people, if you call them, they actually will refer you to a third party, and I don't know why, and they want to charge you a fee to send you some kind of verification of employment. And I don't ever mess with that. I just say, bring me your pay stubs. So the process I use today is not much different than what I used back then. It's a little easier. It's a little more automated. In fact, we use a property management software called Buildium, and they partnered with TransUnion, which is a national credit bureau, and they have a service called Smart Move. And so when someone fills out an application, it's all done electronically online. I push a button, it sends it to TransUnion. They send me back a report that gives me credit information, criminal information. It checks for evictions, and though it doesn't do any employment verification or anything, it gives me those other three things. And of course, I still do my manual checks. I check the state websites, and I do all that stuff for criminal. I also call the landlords, and I also look at pay stubs. So I do some of the things that I used to do, but I get all this additional information, and this gives me a broader picture. I have a lot more information going into a tenant choice today than I did years ago. So let me say, this system has worked well for us, and I've been doing rental property management for 20 years now almost, and I've had, other than that first one, I've had one other eviction that was court ordered, where we actually went to court and had them removed from the property. So that's 2 evictions court ordered in 20 years of rental property management. So that's pretty good. Don't be afraid to charge an application fee. Now, years ago, I got a little pushback when it wasn't as common to do credit screenings and to have application fees. But today, everyone expects it. It's not a big deal. So go ahead and charge an application fee. It's going to do 2 things for you. First thing it's going to do is it's going to recoup that cost of that credit screening. The second thing it's going to do is it's going to weed out some undesirable people. And what I mean by that is, when I didn't charge for a credit screening, I would tell people, hey, I'm going to do a credit check, I'm going to do a criminal check, I'm going to verify employment, I'm going to check out your rental history and all that stuff. It didn't matter. People would still fill out applications knowing that they had horrible credit. They knew they had a bankruptcy and an eviction and a felony and all that stuff. They didn't care. It didn't cost them anything. They didn't have anything to lose. But when you charge $35 like I do for a credit report and a credit screening, suddenly they want to know, hey, what does your credit score have to be? Or, if I have a bankruptcy, can I still rent from you? Or if I was evicted before, will you still allow that? Or if I had a felony, can I still rent from you? They're going to come forward and confess a lot of times what the problem is, or what the area they think may keep them from getting the rental. And they're going to want to know that before they throw their $35 down, because then they have something to lose if you don't pick them. So, and sometimes it's something you can work with. I ran into a lady, she had a felony for attempted murder, but it was 25 years ago, and she had not had any criminal history since then, and she was a teenager at the time, and she was 40 something years old when I rented to her. So, and she lived in one of my houses for 10 years. So, you know, it doesn't mean that I won't rent to you, but if you had a felony last week for attempted murder, that may be a problem. But this will help you make better decisions on your tenants, and they'll weed themselves out if you use an application fee. Number 3 is cash flow is king. You never want to buy a property that's not cash flowing. If you don't have enough cash flow in a deal, you're not going to be able to pay for the mortgage and the taxes and the insurance and all the expenses. And back then, I was using a 1% rule. And now what that means is that if you buy a property that's $100,000, let's say, it should return about 1% per month, which is $1,000 a month in rent. Now, the inverse could be true as well. If you're looking at properties and you're looking at a property, let's say that's bringing in $800 a month, that means it should be priced around $80,000. And if it's priced more than that, you might be paying too much for it. So you want to look at that. Now, there's other factors like the location and the condition of the property and things like that. These are just general rules of thumb, but I was using that method when I found this duplex, and it was giving me about a 1% return. Nowadays, I'm going to look for probably a 1.5 to 2% return on my investment, and I have a little more experience in negotiating and in analyzing the deals, and I'm able to find deals that fit that criteria. It's a little easier to do once you've been doing it for a while. Early on, you probably need to stick with about a 1%, and I found out even on the first deal that I did that after I did a little research, my market rates on the rent were a little low, and I was able to make rent raises pretty quickly and get that return up within a short period of time, and so that also increased my cash flow. If you were to buy a property that's, say, break even or has a little bit of a negative cash flow, with the idea that it's going to appreciate in value and the rents are going to go up and eventually it's going to start making cash flow, making profit, that is a recipe for disaster. Just don't do that. I know some people will tell you that's okay because real estate's always going to go up and things are always going to increase in value, but that can backfire on you. If you were to have an unexpected expense, you're going to go deeper in the hole. If a heat and air unit goes out or if the roof starts leaking or anything can happen. You never want to do that. There's another thing that happens that most people don't even factor in, and that's the psychological part of it. When you have an investment where you're going out and you're actually managing it and you're doing the maintenance and the repairs and you're collecting the rent and you're doing all this stuff and you're not making any money from it or you're losing money every month, you're going to lose interest in it. It's going to become a headache and a nuisance to you. It's not going to be exciting and fun. Even a small cash flow of $200 or $300 can keep you interested in the deal and in the property. And if you enjoy property management and property maintenance, then you may love to think of ideas of how you can improve the property and ways that you might be able to improve the cash flow of the property as time goes on. Number 4, paying cash. Now this may not be an option, especially in the beginning, but having the ability to pay cash for a property gives you a huge advantage in the negotiation stage. While other offers are coming in and they're full of finance contingencies, yours will be cash and you'll be able to close quickly. This is a huge advantage to the sellers. It allows you to make better deals. You're going to get better cash flowing deals. You're going to be able to jump on deals and your offers are going to get accepted more if they're cash. And that is a huge advantage. Now, I understand if you're getting started, that may not be an option for you. But remember, it doesn't have to be your cash. It can be other people's money. And it doesn't have to be the bank's money even. It can be from a hard money lender, a friend, a relative. You could get a HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit on a house if you're a homeowner. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get the cash to close the property and take those contingencies out of the deal. That's the key. because to make your offer more attractive to the seller, you want to take out the contingencies and to be able to close quickly. Having cash allows you to do that. And I have found that usually the best deals go to the cash buyers. Now, when I was looking for my first property, I didn't have cash. I knew I was going to finance the property. So every time I made an offer, I had to put it contingent on financing. And I didn't know how to really do an inspection, so I also put a contingency in there to do a property inspection. This cost me many deals. Contingencies slow down the process. They make the offer less attractive to the seller, and they're less likely to pick your offer out of a bunch of offers. Let's face it, most of the time when you see a good deal on a property hit the market, it sells quickly, and it usually has multiple offers. So when you're coming into that kind of situation and you're coming in with all these contingencies, you're never going to get that property. So if you saw a property that would be worth, let's say $100,000, and somebody lists it for $80,000, and you say, wow, that's a great deal, I need to go make an offer on that, and you go out and you say, I'll give you $80,000 full price for it, and you got 10 guys with cash saying, I'll give you $80,000 close tomorrow, and yours is $80,000, and you got contingencies on financing and contingencies on inspections, they're never going to take your deal. It took me almost a year to find and close my first deal. I looked at tons of properties and made many offers only to get outbid time and time again by cash buyers. What I didn't realize was I was wasting a lot of time chasing deals I was never going to get because of the contingencies I had placed in my offers. Number 5, you have to be prepared to move quickly. Now, early on, I am guilty of this. Like many people, I have kind of analysis paralysis. And I tend to want to analyze a deal, run my numbers and run my spreadsheets, and I want to analyze it to death. You can't do that and get good deals, because the good deals are going to go fast. You have to be able to move quickly. You have to be able to recognize a good deal. And that's where doing your homework is. You analyze a bunch of deals, you're going to start being able to say, you look at a deal and you won't even have to run the numbers. If you've done it 100 times before, you'll look at a deal and you'll say, that's a good deal. And you know it's a good deal. Years ago, I wasn't confident doing my own property inspections because I didn't know very much about construction or electrical or plumbing or anything like that. So I had to rely on others to do that. There again, this slows down the process because I've got to schedule it and I've got to wait on them to come out and do an inspection and wait for the reports. Now today, I can walk through a property, I can look at the electrical systems, the plumbing systems, look at the structure of the house, I can tell you what needs to be done and about how much it's going to cost to have it done. So that just comes with experience, and that's going to come over time. So just stick with it. You'll get good at that as time goes on. But as you learn how to do that, it's going to allow you to move quicker and allow you to not rely on so many other people to make these decisions. And the sooner you can make a decision, the better deals you can get and the quicker you can jump on those deals. So that's why it's critical to be able to do your own inspections and to be able to do things on your own. Learning to move quickly is the key to getting good deals. Your ability to move quickly is going to help you make decisions faster, and it's going to help you jump on deals when they pop up on the market. If you can set up a process where you can analyze, inspect, and make a decision on a property really quickly, it's going to help you to make more deals and to make more money. So there you have it, the 5 things that I wish I knew before I started real estate investing. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button. And if you'd like to see more, subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the bell for notifications so you know when we release new videos. And if you'd like more information on real estate investing, go to retirerichwithrealestate.com. Until next time, I'm Paul Price, teaching you how to retire rich with real estate.